Holding it down for us in the DraftKings studio in Boston. We are brought to you by Wrangler, made for the ride of life. Save 15% on your first Wrangler.com order with promo code GOJO15. Awesome show for you guys today. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review, leave us that 5-star rating, and check us out. Subscribe to the DraftKings YouTube channel where you can watch us every day, Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, live there, DraftKingsNetwork.com, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, and more. Patrick Surtain II going to join us. Broncos defensive back, one of the best young players in the NFL, talking about their season turnaround. How does a team respond after getting 70 points put on their head? Fascinated to talk to him about that and some good stuff he's doing off the field. But, Dad, do you think Al Michaels feels like he's cursed at this point? Like, does Al just, at some point in the middle of that game, have to feel like in a past life he did something where now the football gods refuse to give him a Thursday night football game that has either a compelling result or a normal outcome?
I mean, so he's a guy that, and he's got one hell of a resume, obviously, that used the spoken word last year to kind of give his opinion that these weren't the best games on Thursday night. So here's the phenomenal matchup that he gets. And listen, his comments be damned. I mean, these teams are in trouble. You know, in the first quarter, Mark Andrews goes down with an ankle injury and looks like he is done for the year. Lamar Jackson was actually down on the sideline with an ankle as well. You had to be going, oh my God, if you were a Baltimore fan saying, are you kidding me? This guy's having a monster year. You got one of the best tight ends in the game already out, and he's laying on the sideline with his hands on his head. And then, oh, by the way, Joe Burrow throws a touchdown pass. Yay! And then you put the ISO camera on him, and he's holding his arm like he just, took a baseball bat to it. You're thinking, what the hell's going on? So he goes in, comes back out on the sideline. He tries to throw, and he is absolutely wincing in pain. So it sounds like a sprain, but we don't know yet on that. So here's how the game ends. Baltimore wins, and we'll obviously get into the game. They sweep Cincinnati. Mark Andrews likely done for the year. Luckily, Lamar Jackson seems to be fine. Joe Burrow is going to miss some time, so it's Jake Browning time in Cincinnati. Bengal fans have to be putting their hands on their head saying, what the hell else can happen right now?
Yeah, so the Ravens win this game, which seems like a foregone conclusion after everything that Dad just mentions to you right there, is once Joe Burrow goes down, this became a really unfun contest and started becoming more existential about what happens now in the rest of the season. Dad, you saw in the midst of this game, the Amazon Prime broadcast starts going back to footage from before the game where Joe Burrow's walking into the stadium with a compression sleeve on that same arm. I saw Chris Long over at the Greenlight podcast going back over game film from the prior week, looking at the potential spot where he saw this injury might have occurred. And Dad, as you pointed out to me before the show, on these short weeks sometimes, because of the way they practice and formulate the schedule, the question of why didn't this show up on an injury report, should this have been mentioned, sometimes gets cloudy.
Yeah, it does. I mean, because basically on a short week, you're never putting pads on. You're never doing anything physical in a practice. So basically, unless you have a lower body injury where you can't even, or, a more serious upper body injury where you can't even go out for walkthrough, then you'll be on the list. But Joe Burrow seems he went out for all basically the walkthroughs, so he never went on a list. And quite honestly, Mike, that's the least of their worries. Those that are saying, the Bengals could be in trouble because they didn't have on the list, who gives a damn? The Bengals could be in trouble because Joe Burrow may not be the quarterback for them. They can deal with any issue the league
could
throws.
Give some of a damn, because that feels like something that if the league decided they were really in the wrong for in a day and age where fantasy football, sports gambling, all these things are as much of a part of the league model as anything. Not disclosing that kind of information does tend to affect a lot of people and is something the league frowns on. I'm with you. It is further down on their order of needs when it comes to the problems that they're getting ready to face. Because now, Dad, without Joe Burrow, this all goes kaput. We had been getting to the point where the Cincinnati Bengals, coming off Joe Burrow healing up from the calf injury, had started to look more like a contender. You had the setback last week, but if Joe Burrow is out for a considerable amount of time now, and we'll get to some comments from Zack Taylor after the game about a non-answer and an update on his injury status, that's the season for them. He is that important to their operation. Their entire offense around Zack Taylor and what they want to do there is built around the fact that you've got a quarterback. We talked about this yesterday when we were discussing Josh Allen. With Joe Burrow, you've got one of the quarterbacks that is special enough to where everything else is catered to him, because he's going to make every other position on the field in your offense, and hell, in some ways on your defense, better than they were without him. And so you pull that away, and now all of a sudden, the AFC North that we talked about with three teams that could potentially get in the playoffs all of a sudden opens up the door for Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers voodoo. All these things now happen because one guy winced on the sideline throwing and looked like his wrist was kaput.
So you're looking at that division now, Baltimore 8-3 with the sweep, and that's key, with the sweep of Cincinnati. Cincinnati sitting at the bottom at 5-5, both Pitt and Cleveland at 6-3. And we kept saying Joe Burrow's calf is getting better. And even in the loss to Houston, their offense still put up 24 points against Houston and got a defensive touchdown to put him in the 30s. So that was surprising. That was more like on the defense there, giving up some points, and C.J. Stroud and what he's done. So that you think he's healing from that, and once as he's getting better and better, that the team is going to get better. But T. Higgins, we know, has been nicked up and missing some time as well. But you just thought, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. All teams go through some injuries. It depends on who and when. But can you take care of that attrition heading into the end of the season to be healthy when you need to be? The problem here is if they ever get healthy enough, they're probably going to be too far gone to matter, because it still looks like, it still looks like Pittsburgh and Cleveland are solidly the first two wild card teams. But basically, here is your quarterbacks for the AFC North. Lamar Jackson, Kenny Pickett, DTR, Jake Browning. I mean, not a murderer's row right there. So you almost throw your hands up like, okay, what the hell is going to happen in this one? This is when you rely on the defenses. So Cleveland playing Pittsburgh, that Pittsburgh offense is not a juggernaut offense. I like that Cleveland defense in this. And man, Jake Browning, I have no idea. DTR finally gets to work as a number one, but he's a young quarterback, so we still have zero idea on what it's going to do. So a division that at one point had every single team in the playoffs still could get 3 in, but man, did the situation get iffy.
Tell you what, that would have been a great crew for like a New Year's 6 bowl game if you talked about those quarterbacks and what they were in college. I'd have paid a lot of money to watch those guys ball out in like the Cheez-It Bowl or the Pop-Tart Bowl. Probably not the same feeling for fans watching in the AFC North right now. I saw a note from Mike Tannenbaum, courtesy of Paul Hembekides over at ESPN. There have now been 48 different starting quarterbacks so far in the NFL this season, and we are just entering Week 11. Obviously, Jake Browning didn't start last night, but now going forward, it seems like if this is as serious as it looked on the sideline, he's going to be the guy for them. And Dad, while I said he's like watching Joe Burrow on half podcast speed, is Jake Browning, can scoot a little bit, made some decisions at good times. You saw Baltimore made it very clear. We mentioned going into the game last night, Baltimore in their games against Joe Burrow hadn't blitzed Burrow a ton in their meetings before. or more content to drop back in coverage, give some of the simulated pressures. Once Browning went in there, they pinned their ears back and said, we're going to make this young player really digest on the fly, went after him hard. They're now tied, this Baltimore Ravens team, according to True Media, with the 2000 New Orleans Saints for the most sacks by an NFL defense through the first 11 weeks of the season. Now, they only track back to 2000, but in the last 23 years, nobody has had more sacks through 11 weeks than this team and that 2000 Saints team. So not the outfit that you want a quarterback in that position coming into if you're the Bengals. But again, Dad, this is all for naught. This is that whole idea of what you used to hear from I'm drawing a blank right now, the old Colts general manager.
Oh, Bill Polian?
Yeah, Bill Polian talking about if Peyton Manning goes down, the backup, it doesn't matter. Our season's over when that happens. That's the kind of grouping that we're in with Joe Burrow here at quarterback. Jesse, did we hear from Zack Taylor after the game last night concerning his star quarterback?
Yeah, he didn't provide much of an actual update on Burrow, but he did do his best to try to keep his team from too much despair after a really tough division loss here.
It looks like he sprained his wrist, so fell on it early in the game and then felt it on the touchdown pass. All the information I have is 2 seconds worth, and then we went to go try to find to win the game. I know the score was too short game. I get that. I know what the perception would be. Our guy was fine. I didn't feel like for 1 second the wind was out of our sails and guys were letting things happen. I felt like every single down and down out on defense, those guys were competing their tail offs. On offense, our guys were fighting like crazy, and it's a good football team. It is, and disappointing that we didn't come through. But again, not discouraged in the slightest about what our guys are capable of the rest of the season now.
So definitely a non-answer here, and he followed up and said we have a chance to regroup. All the things that we really wanted to do are still in front of us, but not without Joe Burrow. Am I right, guys?
Oh, no, we'll be all waiting with bated breath for that injury update this morning whenever it comes. But yeah, Dad, that's a man who I think knows his fate and is just trying to put on a really brave face for the family.
Yeah, the one thing you have at least is an excuse. Our quarterback wasn't there. Now, I would say we could easily put them aside in the playoff race if, in fact, Joe misses a significant amount of time. So let's do that. And now let's look at Baltimore, who is leading that division. Yeah. And lose Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews has been the go-to for Lamar Jackson for so long. Now this year, Zay Flowers, who has been a monster pickup, fantastic player for them, leads the team in receptions with 53. Mark Andrews is second with 45, but he's that go-to guy. Also has 6 touchdowns, I believe. So you love him in the red zone, which is obviously a huge part of the game for Baltimore. So how much does this hurt going forward? Because he knew it. Anybody who watched that game, when he went down, he pointed down to his ankle. He was telling people, come on the field. And Zay Flowers took his helmet off and dropped it. I mean, it's one of those things, Mike, You just know as a player, and when you're looking at someone laying on the field and they know that it's a serious injury. And you could tell that right, even though it didn't look unbelievably damning, the play. It's like his ankle got folded under, and you knew there was probably something.
Hip drop tackle that the NFL league office is looking at right now. Like, Dad, I don't know how you feel about that. I understand the argument that there's only so many ways that you can go out there and get it done. Tackling's always going to happen at odd angles, but this is a taught technique, and it's one that the league office has pointed out has a really high rate of injury that we've seen out on the field. I mean, Logan Wilson, not for nothing, was the tackler on all 3 plays that injured Ravens players last night. He was the hit on Odell Beckham Jr. late that banged up his shoulder. He was the hit on Lamar Jackson on the sideline, and he was the hit on the hip drop tackle that took Mark Andrews out.
Listen, I'm not going to sit here and say we need to get rid of that by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, a lot of times the offensive player has the momentum going forward, and that's one way to stop it. A lot of times is it a DB on a tight end or a running back who they're smaller than, who they have to try and drop them that way. To me, listen, I feel bad when people get hurt, but I just don't think you can keep doing things against the defense to hinder them and now you can't do this tackle when, unfortunately for some players, the leverage of that tackle is one of the best ways they can get somebody down without them being dragged further. So I just can't see it, Mike.
To me, it's so similar to the horse collar in what you're trying to prevent that I don't know how you can justify it. And like you said, it's tough because it eliminates a certain factor of the game. But remember when the NFL saw the injuries that were happening to players on cut blocks on the backside of zone plays after after my former teammate Ian Williams got his ankle broken playing for the 49ers, and all of a sudden you outlawed that, and it was going to adversely affect the ability to run outside zone plays, but nobody cared because dudes were injured and things were happening. So I wonder if this might be high profile enough to move that. I do understand the plight of the defensive player, but if you've got this much data saying this particular tackle style is causing injuries, I'd be stunned if the NFL didn't act there. But Dad, to your original question about Mark Andrews, it's a huge blow, but I think at this point it's one that the Ravens can still overcome just because of what we've started to see with this offense. Now, I took it as a good sign. I don't know about you, Dad. Odell Beckham Jr. went down late with a shoulder injury in that game and was on the sidelines, took his pads off. The game was already well within hand at that point, and so they didn't have to throw him back out there. It was a banner game for him, and watching the development over the last couple of games where Odell Beckham Jr. has now become more of a consistent option for that team. They've got some depth in the tight end room. Isaiah Likely's had to moonlight in some action there. He's been a backup guy for them, the former pick out of Coastal Carolina, but he's moonlighted as a starter when Andrews has been out in the past in prior years. And then Zay Flowers, who you mentioned, has really ascended to that number one role in the offense. You feel like between that development, Keaton Mitchell in the backfield, who thankfully got more of those touches that we were looking for last night, they've got enough explosive potential now to maybe offset some of that loss in the middle of Mark Andrews, who no doubt, Lamar talked about him after the game. He said, that's been my guy since I was a rookie. He knows how important he is to that offense, but I think with some of the things that we've started to see materialize in the last few weeks, they can withstand that blow with what they've got currently.
Well, Odell's got to be the guy, right? He's third on that team. You go 53 receptions, Zay Flowers 45, Andrews, then 24 for Odell. Last 3 games, though, 3 games ago against Seattle, 7 targets. The loss to Cleveland, he only had 2 targets. And then last night he did have 7 targets and 4 receptions. So we know what kind of a game breaker he can be. He hasn't been kind of that main or one of the main cogs of that offense. I think we expected a little bit more, and now Baltimore is really going to expect a little bit more. The big thing for Andrews, it's a safe guy that moves the sticks, and B, gets in the end zone. And those are 2 things that are just monstrous, especially when you're getting on into the playoffs for ball control. So we'll see. Certainly nowhere near as devastating as Cincinnati losing Burrow, but still a heavy hit for Baltimore to take.
Yeah, massive, massive hit, there's no doubt, and how they offset that is going to be huge for them going forward, because to your point, too, Todd Monken, a guy that loves to use multiple tight end sets, always did when he was at Georgia, is a master of utilizing that personnel group. And now we'll see. Maybe that makes way for even more action from these running backs. Gus Edwards actually led the team in rushing last night. And they were able to close the door, Dad. You look for the positives for Baltimore. They had a lot of these fourth quarter woes. Certainly this is fueled by Joe Burrow, but you saw the mentality that they took. I think on the final 2 drives, or 2 of their last scoring drives, 11 of the 13 plays were rushing attempts. They knew, all right, we've got to lean more into this. We have a chance to slam the door, and we are going to do it. So the Ravens get a huge win. They survive our curse in the, hey, are you the best team in football, putting them in our top 4 for the NFL playoff committee's approach here. But, man, it doesn't feel good in the way that it happened. Baltimore and Cincinnati, by the way, in this era, Lamar Jackson and Burrow had only faced each other 4 times going into this game because of injury. So that'll tell you a lot. And, by the way, it's informative of how people talk about Lamar Jackson going forward, where they always bring up the injury concerns. You look at his counterpart in this division, Joe Burrow, been injured just as much, if not more, in the early portion of his career. And it's unfortunate because these are 2 guys that the whole NFL is better for in having them on the field. Dad, I did want to give a quick shout, because so much of yesterday, and I'm not going to get into the discourse around, Carissa Thompson and the things that were said and everything that went on online, but I did want to give a shout out with all of that injury stuff going on. If we're going to talk about sideline reporters, Kaylee Hartung, who's on the Thursday night broadcast with Al and Herbie, did an awesome job last night. I think we should probably spend more time celebrating the win of sideline reporters when they go down there, because you know this, and doing this for so long, long. They put in so much work during the week, talking to players, talking to coaches. You look at the mileage they run during games, going down around the sideline to hawk down information, and you get so much less comparative airtime than the people up in the booth, and you've got to try and find ways to make those moments sing. And I thought Kaylee, especially with all the injuries last night, did an awesome job in that. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of great sideline reporters. I know you have too, but I just wanted to make sure that there was some love going out there, because there was a lot of nasty conversation yesterday.
Yeah, there were, and I would imagine Carissa may regret some of the things she said and why she said it publicly. I'm not really sure why she did, but I've definitely got an appreciation for sideline, because the last 2 Super Bowls I've worked the sideline. I've been in the booth my entire life, and now the last 2 Super Bowls I worked the sideline. And the one thing you get to do in the booth is talk a lot. And you're right, man. All of a sudden down on the sidelines, I'm chomping at the bit. I'm in my talk back to the producer. I got this or I got that. And I know full well that they can only come to you so much. So it is, and you have all this information. You're talking to players and coaches. You can get it. So they put their step counter should be pretty high in those games, because they move around a lot to try and get the info.
Yeah, we've got all that player tracking data right now, the GPS stuff. We need to put that on sideline reporters so people get a full appreciation. So love up your favorite sideline reporter, and make sure you let them know that the job is important and there's a lot of good that comes from it. Coming up next, let's head to college football. From one Harbaugh to another, a ruling for Michigan next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. We have another twist in the Michigan saga that just gets twistier every single day. So, in a shocking move, Michigan has announced that Coach Harbaugh and the Big Ten have settled their litigation. Harbaugh's going to serve his 3-game suspension. And guys, the question here really is just why? Why would Harbaugh and Michigan throw in the hat after seemingly coming out swinging on all of these charges? They're going to fight, they're America's team, blah, blah, blah. And now they're just like, okay, hands up, going to serve the suspension. What do we think's going on here?
Yeah, Dad, it changed very quickly. Michigan was standing on business to the utmost degree in this, and now all of a sudden when faced with Jim Harbaugh, who had said he was going to attend the hearing, he didn't want anyone to play favorites, he just wanted his day in court, he referenced a few good men, all the things as they made a show of their defiance here, and now all of a sudden at the last minute decide to go ahead and drop this, and because of that, the Big Ten says that they're going to close their investigation. Everything else from here on out is going to be left in the hands of the NCAA after this, so Jim Harbaugh won't coach for Maryland this weekend and won't coach for Ohio State the following weekend. Dad, the only thing that I can think of in this is that because the Big Ten reserved the right to impose additional penalties if more information came to light, maybe as the week went on and Michigan and their legal team reviewed the situation, they realized there might be a potential for that to happen, and it was better to deal with the devil you know, get done with this, and know that at the very least, you've got the long timeline likely coming up for the NCAA investigation. You won't prompt any more bad blood or any more reason for the Big Ten to look in and do something this year, since Tony Petitti's already shown he's got a willingness to do that.
Completely agree. All of a sudden, when you're preparing for this meeting Friday and then you realize that more sanctions can be thrown against you if they find more info, you're like, maybe we just cut our losses right here. And, they won at Penn State without Harbaugh on the sideline, though Ohio State is a better team than Penn State. And that was really what this was about, this meeting Friday, if it took place, to try and get Jim Harbaugh back on the sideline. It was for the Ohio State game, right? It wasn't for the Maryland game. It was for the Ohio State game to get him back. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And then nothing was going further than that. But I think this is a good way to just close the case. Remember, Jim can be at practice all week. Believe me, he'll be part of everything for that Ohio State game that he needs to be. But he won't be there, so certainly there's going to be some against Michigan because he's not on the sideline for other decisions that have to be made. But know that you can know that going in, there's a whole lot of preparation for it. But yeah, I just figure you're right. It's the devil you don't know, the devil you know. Let's just end it because, as I said, and I'm seriously not kidding, that 2026 will be the year sanctions will come down from the NCAA, which works perfectly because then you'll punish a bunch of kids who weren't even there for the adults making the mistakes that they made. So just a perfect NCAA situation.
Well, I mean, this whole situation, the Big Ten was saying, well, we're punishing the program, but not Jim Harbaugh, because they've maintained throughout all of this that they don't have evidence that Jim Harbaugh actually knew or was involved in anything. And yet Jim Harbaugh is the only one that's not playing in these games right now or not involved in these games. Dad, to give people some idea, because I've been asked a ton in recent days, how much just Jim Harbaugh not being on the sideline actually affects him? And like you said, let's put aside Maryland and say in the Ohio State game, if you've got Sharon Moore, the offensive coordinator, again, acting in that, what does that do stressing that team differently? What kind of effect does that actually have?
Well, again, it's decisions on the sideline. You're going forward on fourth down. What are your situational things that go on, because he'll be part of both game plans, offense, defense, all three, I should say, offense, defense, special teams, because he's going to be there all week. And also, everybody needs to understand, rarely is a player dealing a lot with your head coach during the week. You're dealing with your position coach and you're dealing with your coordinator. That's who you're dealing with. The head coach is kind of the CEO. They oversee everything. So from a preparation standpoint during the week, which, again, Jim Harbaugh will be there, still, even then, the players don't have a lot of association or work with Jim Harbaugh. It's their coaches. So that's the main thing, and it's going to be really Jim and the coaches, the conversation he has with the coaching staff about situations, about when they're going to go for it on fourth downs, situations that have to be made in a split second that everybody looks to Jim, and Jim is going to make that decision. That's what you miss. Now, whoever is going to be responsible for making that decision, is it going to be the interim head coach? Is it going to be that guy? Or do they say enough is on his plate to be the interim head coach? Do they spread out the responsibility of certain situations going to different coaches? That's what I don't know. But that's the biggest thing you miss, I think, by now. And just the comfort feeling of that's your coach, man. Sure. I mean, that's your guy, right? But as far as actual practical application, it's those quick decisions that need to be made that coaches look to the head coach. Hey, Jim will say, hey, if we get it to 4th and less than 5 in this situation, we're going for it. So now the coach knows that, okay, I'm going to run a play based for that. Now, who makes that decision now? Who's responsible for doing what Jim did, where everybody looked at Jim, now they have to look at some other coach there, and that could have an effect.
Yeah, it stresses the chain of command, right? Everybody's got their role on game day and their responsibility. And to your point, you don't deal much with the head coach, even during the body of a game if you're a player. And so now, for like the offensive line specifically, they're used to Sharon Moore being the offensive line coach and the offensive coordinator. And so they've got a particular game day cadence with him. Hey, how they communicate when they come over to the sideline, what that's like. Now, all of a sudden, that becomes different because Sharon Moore's got to be the head coach if he is, in fact, the guy that continues doing that going forward. And so everybody else involved has to change their communication in that process. And it's a little thing until it's in a game like Ohio State, where now if you're a Michigan fan too, I look at this and say, built-in excuse. Like if it does go wrong, and I'm sure you don't think it's going to go wrong, and you still believe your team is capable of beating Ohio State the way they had the last 2 years, but if they somehow manage to lose now, built-in excuse. Like you've got that in your back pocket, you're ready to go. So feels like a win-win for everybody in no way, shape, or form. I'm sure Michigan fans are going to be... I'd be curious what the reaction is, at GoJo and Golic on Twitter, from Michigan fans, if any of you out there listening right now, what the reaction is to the school closing up shop and doing this right before this critical juncture of your season. Dad, the only other big headline from college football that I saw yesterday that was interesting, well, one of a few, Texas A&M apparently throwing their Hail Mary and shooting their shot for Dan Campbell, who is a former Aggie. He's a Texas A&M alum back from the mid-'90s as a tight end there, and got summarily rejected. Dan Campbell, it seems, came out and made it abundantly clear, at least according to reports, that he was not going to take that job, which, Dad, I can't imagine you could find an NFL coach right now that, even for all of the money that comes from that black gold that they use down there in College Station, I'm not sure there's enough money in the world to convince an NFL coach to go back down to college, given all the things that you have to manage right now.
Yeah, I think the only ones you're going to get are the college coaches that come to the NFL, fail, and then go back to college. See Matt Rule, right? Who turned around a couple of programs in Temple and Baylor, goes to Carolina, it doesn't work there, gets paid a ton of money, and is now at Nebraska. So as far as, and we know, and we always hate talking about it because it's people's jobs, there will be 4, 5, 6 openings in the NFL this year. And if these weren't guys that coached in college and have been in the NFL, you're right, they're going to stay in the NFL, and they're probably going to be coordinators somewhere. That's what happens. You drop back down to coordinator unless you're that college coach, and you go back to college. I don't blame Texas A&M for shooting their shot. I mean, this is one of the reasons why you fired Jimbo now is you can start, be out there looking, for another head coach and get feelers at least out there of who may be interested. Why not take a shot for Dan Campbell? He wasn't going to go there, but you never know, right? He may have such an allegiance to that school that maybe they were banking on the fact that he said, oh my God, I get to go coach where I played, and may have loved it. You don't know unless you ask. So you back channel that thing and you ask and you find out he's good where he's at, and it'll be interesting, that job. There will be more jobs that will open up, but that's going to be a real interesting one as a team that is not in the upper level of the SEC taking on, all the SEC foes you will. It's always nice if you're losing to land on a bunch of money to make the landing a little softer.
There are few things more valuable in college football than a quality coach who happened to play for or attend your university. Getting a little bit of that hometown love. Couldn't go all the way and close the deal with Dan Campbell, so we'll wait and see, like you said, who they're able to toss fistfuls of cash to next. Coming up next, though, maybe my favorite picture of the entire week as Major League Baseball hands out some hardware at the postseason. It clouds even more about one player's future next.
back to GoJo and Golic. MLB announced their MVP award winners last night, and Shohei Ohtani, oh man, the two-way star became the first two-time unanimous MVP when he won the AL honor last night. Pretty cool. And then Ronald Acuna, also named NL MVP, also a unanimous winner. So this is the first time both the AL and NL MVPs were unanimous. Pretty cool. And guys, there was no better moment than when Shohei Ohtani was announced as the winner, and he was at home when it happened, and he's on camera, and he has his dog with him, and then he high-fived his puppy.
Yep.
So I mean, look at this dog. Look how cute it is. Look at it. Little high five. This little fella. Oh, my God. I'm
on and off the field. Shohei Ohtani is my MVP. That is my face of baseball. That's a man who understands, Dad, the easiest marketing tactic of all time. Insert dog, acquire currency. And Shohei Ohtani just continues to win over more people as he's walking into an offseason where, oh, by the way, last night, neither him nor Ronald Acuna Jr. Now, Ronald Acuna Jr. was making his debut for the Tiburones de la Guara in the Venezuelan Winter League shortly after claiming the award. But I didn't see a reason that Shohei didn't show up to talk to the baseball writers after this, other than he kind of knows his future is going to be the center focus of most of this offseason, and so we get even more cloudy images around that, but we get the greatest image of all time, which is him high-fiving a dog.
Yeah, he didn't want to talk about that, so he figured I'll high-five my dog and I'm dipping on out of this thing. So a good move by him, and when you're that good and have that kind of clout, you can go ahead and do that. So this is going to be the most interesting story of the baseball offseason, obviously. Where does he go and how much does he get? People are putting it in the $500 million some range. Does it get that much with the Tommy John surgery again on his arm? So all looking like he wouldn't pitch next year, just hit. So does that affect? Listen, he's going to be okay either way. Somehow, some way, he'll pay the bills. But it is going to be some kind of ridiculous amount of money. And then real quickly, because we're talking about him and the Angels, the domino effect, if he does go somewhere else, the GM for the Angels has basically said Mike Trout is an Angel and we're going to win a lot of games with him, which is the kiss of death. So as soon as Shohei Ohtani signs somewhere else, there's rumors out there of Trout being traded to the Phillies. Could you imagine that? I mean, oh my God, another just lunch pail dude. And when I say that, I know these guys are making just tens and hundreds of millions of dollars.
He's quiet and has a thick neck that qualifies you for being a lunch pail guy.
Yeah. So could you imagine the Phillies pulling that one off? I mean, they need to make sure they re-sign Aaron Nola for sure from the pitching standpoint. But, man, that's kind of the rumor out there. And as I said, you get the kiss of death when the GM for the Angels said, no, Mike Trout is an Angel. Yeah, and there's a no trade that he would have to give up. You know how long Mike Trout's an Angel? Until he isn't.
Yeah, I feel like we can trace this all back. And I remember when we talked to Jared Carrabis from Baseball is Dead about this before the season, coming off the World Baseball Classic, where you saw both of those guys get a little taste of what life is like when you get to play meaningful postseason baseball. And that might have been the worst thing that could have ever happened to the Angels, because for so long, Mike Trout just sat over there and did his thing. And he talked about being the weatherman, and he barely talked at all if he did. And he just stayed over there, and he crushed baseballs, and he was one of the greatest baseball players of all time. But now he got a little taste of that. And I wonder if him and Shohei after that both kind of looked at each other, because you had Team USA and Japan face off in the championship of that, and Shohei's squad gets the win. And I wonder if they were sitting in the clubhouse at one point after that, and they're just like, we got to get the hell out of here, man. Like, we're both going to be crazy rich. That's the baseline for this. And obviously, Mike Trout made choices, right? When he re-signed there in the past, he made the choice that, all right, I'm going to take this money with the understanding that I kind of know what the deal is around here. But, man, you saying him in Philly, like, you want to talk about a guaranteed ticket to the postseason. You play on that team, you feel like we got a really good shot at delivering Mike Trout to the dance for the first time in a long time, and that would be stellar for everyone involved in baseball, because we talk about this all the time in all sports with the NBA in-season tournament. What you need is your best players in the best spots at all time. We had gotten that with a guy like Bryce Harper, not even the best player, but an incredibly electric player, a team that was a ton of fun in that World Series stage. Injecting Mike Trout into that situation would be manna from heaven for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it would. And listen, Mike Trout, we know, has been nicked up some as of late, and it's not like he would go to that team and you say, there's our only superstar. They have a great team that they would just be adding another bullet to the chamber with a guy like Mike Trout. So we'll see how it plays out. Have no idea, but Shohei Ohtani, I think we're all pretty confident is not going to be an angel. And that, as I said, would that start a domino effect of Mike Trout heading out of there as well, whether it's to Philly or somewhere else. So Shohei, the number is going to be, that's what we need to start looking at, greatest free agent signings in any sport of what they were. I guess that doesn't include, Saudi money, because that kind of throws
I was going to say
off.
we're gonna put that off to the side because that's sort of a different tax bracket and it doesn't feel great. Neither does this, Dad. We saw the news yesterday that Major League Baseball's owners voted unanimously to relocate the Oakland A's to Las Vegas and become just the most recent in a string of teams migrating to the desert. And, Dad, I don't think anything sums up the business around this more, because we get people arguing on both sides of this, and how people view these situations. They're always hyper local, so I'm always hesitant to get too much into the family business of what was asked for locally, how they've been trying to go about securing stadium funds, because at the end of the day, I'm kind of the mind that if the rich people want something to happen, the rich people are going to do whatever they need to make it happen. So much so that I'm reading the ESPN.com article by Jeff Passan, and one of the things brought up in this discussing some of the complications from the move is the move is not yet finalized. Legal challenges from a teachers union in Nevada regarding the $380 million that the state has committed to the construction of the $1.5 billion stadium in the Las Vegas Strip could scuttle the move, but winning approval for the owners marks a significant step toward Oakland losing its last major men's professional sports team. That is all you need to know. That, these teachers that are concerned with the money that could be going towards education in the state, they're going to be but a minor speed bump on the path to Las Vegas getting another very profitable sports team jammed in there.
Listen, we talk about the leverage hammer, swing it whatever you can, and if the teachers union has some leverage in this, I hope they swing it and I hope they get paid. Because we all know the value of teachers, right? I mean, we get it. But
it's not about them getting paid. It's about the allocation of funds to education to the state. And my point is, they have no leverage in this situation. They're going to get railroaded. Let's put it this way. I don't know anything about the local politics of that. I should go out with that. But this feels like a situation, Dad, where they are going to be a speed bump on the way to Vegas getting exactly what they want with this sports team. And it's a further commentary about the things that we value as a country and how sports tends to work. Where, again, rich, powerful men who own these teams want things in the desert right now because that's the hot place to have a team. It's going to get done no matter what.
As where I was going until you so rudely interrupted me is if you have any kind of leverage for something, whether it's for you or for your profession, swing it. But at the end of the day is where I was going. They're going to lose out. I hope they get some, but I agree with you. They're going to be a speed bump. Baseball is going to be in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is the hottest place right now for professional sports, except if you're F1, because that's turning out to be an abject failure, what's going to go on this weekend. We can get into that in a little bit, but it's been brutal, and I was just out there witnessing a lot of it. But Vegas, hey, they are proving that they can hold a crowd, right? We kind of wondered what would happen in LA when they got not one but two teams with the Rams and the Chargers, with people just doing so many other things out in LA. And I've been to a few games. You've been to them as well out there where, you know what, visiting crowds are pretty prevalent out there. So, but in Vegas, man, you look at the Golden Knights, you look at the Aces. I mean, you look at how much those teams are loved there and when they're doing well as well. So, and the Raiders would be as well if they started to win. So this is Vegas. It's so amazing, Mike, that not long ago, Vegas was just taboo to professional sports. And once everybody learned how to navigate the money, and oh, by the way, the incredible amount of money that you can make, all of a sudden it wasn't so taboo anymore. It's just amazing what the almighty dollar can do.
Sorry for cutting you off before. I was a little overzealous.
Are you? You get excited. I know. That's okay. That's okay. No worries.
A lot of passion. A lot of passion for the teachers, because here at GoJo and Golic, we believe in supporting and paying the teachers right now. Support and pay the teachers, support the troops, save the whales, all that stuff. We didn't ask for any of this. Coming up next, speaking of someone who asked for all of this, we had the Warriors in their first game since Draymond Green was ejected and then suspended 5 games in a brawl. We'll see what Steve Kerr had to say about it next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Last night, the Warriors played in their first game since the brawl. They took on the Thunder, and they had no Draymond Green because of the suspension. Once again, no Curry. And once again, they did lose. So here is Steve Kerr after the game talking about what his team needs to do to stop the skid amidst a 5-game losing streak.
We got to be grittier. We got to show more spark and energy defensively. We've got to put up a better fight. You know, it just felt like they got anything they wanted. We had a lot of miscommunications on pick and roll coverages, and you know, anytime you're in a rut like this, I mean, we're obviously in it right now, 5 losses in a row. So when you're in that state, there's only one way out, and that's to dig your way out of it, and you got to fight and compete, and that's what we have to do.
Guys, Steve Kerr saying they got to fight, they got to compete, but it seems like they're having a little bit of trouble doing that without Steph Curry and Draymond Green.
I feel like Draymond's ears probably perked up when he said fight. He's like, oh, okay, so you want this.
Yeah.
Got it. Say less, coach, bet.
I mean, listen, you don't have Steph Curry. I mean, that's obviously a huge part of this, and Draymond. I mean, why are we overly shocked? How about Chet Holmgren went for a double-double, though? We were waiting for that big matchup with Wemby, and it really didn't materialize. He goes for 13 and 10 against a depleted Golden State team. They're going to be fine. This is like an elongated football season, right? There's 82 games instead of 17. You go through injuries. You go through guys missing games, whether it's load management or whether it's actual injury. but it's just be healthy at the right time. And then it's about where you are in the playoffs. Are you playing in? Are you in the playoffs? And what you do from there. So I don't worry about things like this when they're just injuries that are going to keep you out for a few games here and there, unless you get to the major injuries. And Draymond is a wild card because you don't know. He does, and as I've always said, the guy's a heck of a player, and he's a guy you want on your team, right? He's a guy you want on your team, and you'd rather not play against him. You'd rather have him on your team because he's a guy that I would always rather pull a guy back than tell him I need more. Now, Draymond, as we've noticed, goes a little too far at times, and you have to pull him back a lot. But I'd still lean toward that. And, oh, by the way, they have the hardware that says this formula still works, even though he could be kind of a wild card. And I'd still like him as a teammate.
You know what? This is the perfect analogous situation for what's gone on with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, right? Where your way of doing things has gotten you considerable amount of offensive success, like we talked about yesterday in Buffalo, where we look and go, they're so good at so many things. They've been able to do it in spite of these turnovers, so how big of a problem really is it for them? When in actuality, their biggest problem is they just have run into in the postseason two quarterbacks and two teams that are better right now in the Chiefs and in the Bengals. Maybe the turnovers factor into that. For Draymond Green, it's a similar thing where it's, hey, we've won all this hardware by me being me. So why have I been incentivized at anywhere along the journey to not be me at any juncture where I'm presented the opportunity to be the most me? And in this case, it was choking somebody out, like Steve Kerr saying, this is inexcusable. And Draymond when has Draymond Green ever known where the line was? Like, we're just coming off, didn't he get suspended last postseason for stomping on Domantas Sabonis' chest? Like, all this moment is going to turn out to be, Dad, is the moment we point back to when he's suspended for a much more meaningful game for some other activity where people look at and go, well, should we give Draymond Green the benefit of the doubt? And then we're going to pull up the Google image search of him choking out Rudy Gobert and go, no, probably doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt, and he's going to get sat down for a playoff game.
Guys are going to play how they play, right? And you're going to not want it to happen. I go back to my years in Philadelphia. If Jerome Brown or Reggie White or Clyde Simmons jumped off sides or got a penalty, Buddy Ryan would be like, guys, just don't do that again. If I did that, and they're like, get Golic out of there, get somebody else in, right? So, I mean, it's the way you play. If it's successful for you, and it was successful for those guys I played with, it's been successful for Golden State and Draymond Green, you just have to live with it. Doesn't mean you don't hold your breath. When something chippy starts to happen, you go, oh, God, it's like, my analogy is like when you and Jake were playing grade school lacrosse and Jake got in a full head of steam run against somebody because he was bigger than everybody and faster than somebody. We all just went, oh, God, he's going to end up in the penalty box. And sure enough, he would destroy some kid and end up in the penalty box. When you see it get chippy out there, you just, oh, God, Draymond's going to get a technical. It's just a matter if he's going to get thrown out of the game and suspended or not. But he's probably at least going to get a technical. And you're right, though. That's what he does. I mean, you can sit there and say he needs to learn, and you'd like him to learn the line a little bit. But as I said, when you have hardware, when you can dangle the rings on your fingers, you're going to let a little bit slide.
Yeah, players tend to be what they're incentivized to be and what they're rewarded for in sports, and that's true at every level. That's why you see guys who get pushed through because of great talent along the way manifest some problems later on because everyone's like, well, you can do the thing we all want you to do really well, and so we'll worry about that all after the fact. So they're going to be fine. You're right. Once Steph Curry comes back, we kind of know the drill around there, and it's early in the NBA season, so it's hard for me to get fired up about anything. It's easy for me to get fired up about this, and here's my ham-fisted transition is the Los Angeles Lakers, according to a report, might be interested in Bulls star Zach Lavine as the calls have started to come in there. There's also a report, Dad, that LA might be interested in maybe a return of a guy like Alex Caruso, the bald eagle who made his name over in Los Angeles before heading out there, which brings me to this. Alex Caruso, proud bald man like myself. I was texted this headline from the internet, Indy100.com. Don't know what that is, but I'm going to trust it. Prince William was named the sexiest bald man of 2023, according to a study. In what world? In what ungodly world? Now, for background in this study, it was a marketing agency called Reboot, and they looked at how many times bald men had been searched for alongside words like shirtless, analyzing their heights, net worths, how shiny their scalps are to come up with a total sexy score out of 10. He just narrowly edged out Vin Diesel for the number 2 spot. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? Yes, Vin Diesel at the 2 spot?
So this is about as clear cut, and Jesse, I'll bring you in on this as well. To me, if you just mention that criteria, I am immediately going to The Rock. And that's it. It's The Rock, and then it's everybody else. Unless you give me another person.
I just want to say, like, Prince William's not bald. He's
balding.
He's bald.
He hasn't gone. He has not embraced it. He's
not brought it home?
He is losing his hair. We all can see it. But he's still got stuff going on over here because he won't embrace it and be bald.
He's got the Paul Feinbaum right now.
Yeah, so he's not bald. He's just traumatically losing his hair publicly and not addressing it.
Mike, who made you come home?
Bomani Jones. Yeah. And I feel like this is, and you know what? Maybe we can be this right now for Prince William because, again, you are what you're incentivized to be. He just got told he's super sexy by this website, so he's like, man, my hairstyle's hitting right now. Prince William, let me look you in the eye right now. I know there's a lot more stuff that we could probably address with the royal family that's much more severe given the history of your country, but we'll put that to the side for the day. And we'll instead say this. Brother, come on home. Everyone in the bald community's got to have someone who's their guide, their shepherd to the next phase in life. Because we all make the mistake where we walk around going, it's not that bad. The other hair that I got, it's offset, and no one's noticing. People are still feeling me right now. No. They're feeling the title. They're feeling a bunch of other things. I promise it's not the hairstyle. We just went through this with Derek White in the NBA. Came on home this offseason here. He's so much better for it for the Boston Celtics right now. I bet he's playing better because of it. We need his splits before and after that. But Bomani Jones back in the day gave me the message I needed, which was it was time to come on home. Time to come on to the bald lifestyle. It's easier maintenance. Once you get used to the shaving methods and what works for you, you're going to love the smooth feel of a freshly shaved bald head, and it's going to clean up the act a little bit right now because the side chops, hey, listen, for Paul Feinbaum and a select few, I think especially in the older male crowd, you can make that work. The rest of us, no. So Prince William, it's been time, but let me be one of the many people joining in the chorus and maybe be your sponsor in coming on home for real this time.
I don't know. There was nobody hotter than Prince William with hair. So you're from the richest family in the world. Why don't you just get new hair?
Well,
there you go.
Opportunity to do that.
And like I said, is anybody topping The Rock right now of the bald studs out there?
Shamar Moore's probably in range for that too.
God,
he's a pretty good-looking bald guy.
Oh my God.
I would probably put him at the top of the heap.
By a mile.
At GoJo and Golic on Twitter.
Wow.
Nominate your favorite sexy bald man out there, and we'll get to the best answers next. right, it is that time of week we are going to get to the Golic NFL acrostic preview, often imitated. Actually, I don't think it's ever been imitated, but it will never be duplicated either because of the crack team that we have around here that provides you not only with an NFL preview that is wedged into our namesake, but also poetry that will be read by our very own Jesse Cofield here coming up in just a second as we recover from the shock and awe of Prince Williams being named the sexiest bald man in the world by some publication. We're trying to effort really any better alternative for this process that's clearly flawed if that's the result that it's producing. Dad's over here judging from his high castle with his full luscious head of hair watching all of this proceed. Dad, I don't want to see those disgusted head shakes from you.
Well, no. Listen, when Jesse mentioned him, and I forgot about him now, Diary of a Mad Black Woman, which is a great movie, Shamar Moore is in that. That dude, Jesse, you're right. He is wow.
Yeah. GoJo's actually the one that remembered him. And then I was just like, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, I can't believe we haven't been giving him what he deserves, which is that.
You're right.
But he is by a mile the number one hottest bald dude. It's not even a competition. It's like him drop off for 10 years, keep going down, just so much time going by, and then whoever's next.
They had Michael Jordan ahead of Shamar Moore on this list.
No.
They had Jeff Bezos in front of Shamar Moore on this list. For anyone that wasn't with us in the last segment, it's Indy100.com. It was a publication called Reboot that did a formula to find the sexiest bald man alive according to Google searches. Things like net worth, height, shirtless or naked searches of you on Google, the golden ratio, vocal attractiveness, and the head shine factor all went into this and somehow netted Jeffrey Bezos ahead of Shamar Moore. So
you heard his laugh after he got off of his Blue Origin spacecraft, it's scary laugh. That's vocal attractiveness.
Who's naked searching Jeff Bezos?
It's because, you know why? It's because everybody talked about how he got divorced and got jacked. So I bet people just wanted to see what that meant.
I hope that's the reason why that's happening, because the alternatives are more than my brain can handle. So I'm going to move away from that at GoJo and Golic on Twitter. If you can find a better looking bald man than Shamar Moore, please present it to us, and we will wait with arms wide open. We will get to the Golic acrostic for Week 11 after this word from Wrangler, guys. We are brought to you by Wrangler here, as you know, at GoJo and Golic. They've been with us since the jump this fall. Support the people that support us, and do it with great jeans, shirts, and jackets that are made for the ride of life. You can be ready for cool days, longer nights, and styles that'll keep you warm and comfortable, moving and looking great no matter where you are. You can wear Wrangler jeans literally anywhere, and I mean that. At work, out at night, playing pickup games with your friends, or at home watching games on TV. They're that comfortable, that durable. And Wrangler shirts for all occasions. Casual tees, snaps or button-ups. You can layer them together, get the best of both worlds. And don't forget about the iconic Wrangler jackets. I know you wouldn't, but just in case, I'm reminding you, because the weather's starting to get a little chilly. We got that fall bite. It's giving way to winter here. And so when you venture out, Wrangler is going to keep you ready for anything. Add some Wrangler to your getup. Jeans, shirts, and jackets that look great, fit great, and move great, so you're always ready for whatever life throws at you. Save 15% on your first Wrangler.com order when you use promo code GOJO15. Wrangler for the ride of life. Jesse, it is that time. The Golic acrostic for the NFL Week 11 preview. Take it away.
Here we go. G is for deciding which dog will have its day. O is for schools where Murray and Stroud used to play. L is what the Browns will try to avoid without Deshaun. I is for a game where one team's playoff hopes will be gone. C is for Justin Fields trying to win his job, back his job. Now let's see if we can do a whole segment without talking about Josh Dobbs. Oh, Slates, you've done it again.
Wow.
Producer Slates chefing up an absolutely incredible Week 11 acrostic. So guys, let's start with G. It's for dogs, okay? So 3 teams underdogs by 10+ points this week. Do any of them have a shot to win? What do we think?
Yeah, shout out to Slates, by the way, cooking each and every week on this poetry here. The man is absolutely gifted. And, Dad, these are not the kind of dogs Shohei Ohtani was high-fiving. Instead, we got 3 dogs over 10 points in the NFL this weekend. The Panthers against the Dallas Cowboys, 10.5-point dogs. The Raiders, 13.5, almost a 2-touchdown underdog on the road against Miami. And the Buccaneers, a 12-point dog on the road against San Francisco. Any of them, who would you say has the best shot of pulling this off?
Well, if I have to pick one, I'm picking the Raiders. And they're the biggest dog out of this, as you mentioned, at 13.5. I just don't see the Panthers pulling it off at home against Dallas, and then Tampa Bay traveling all the way to San Francisco. San Fran seems to have hit their traction last week. The Raiders are still living off that emotion. They're playing better. Josh Jacobs is getting 10, 11 more carries per game in these last 2 games than he did before that. You still have Davante Adams. You have Max Crosby. So while do I think it's going to happen? No, but Miami has struggled against teams that are 500. And oh, by the way, the Raiders are 500 at sitting at 5-5. I do think Miami is the better team here. But if you're asking me who has the chance to win, I do think it would be the Raiders. A heavy dose of Josh Jacobs, get that defense to go off and move off his post a little bit. That's what Max Crosby does so well. But unfortunately, the wild card is Aiden O'Connell. While you have Davante Adams and Jacoby Myers, you just have a young quarterback who's still kind of getting used to the position. But I will say the Raiders for this answer.
I love the idea of the Dolphins getting ready for a team coming up and mentioning, oh, they struggle with a 500 team, just quaking in their boots. They see the Raiders on their schedule going, oh, we don't know if they're going to be good this week. We don't know if they're going to be bad this week. How do we even process all of this with this team that's been so remarkably average across the board? But it is the wild card factor, because in all seriousness with that, trying to analyze the Raiders right now post Josh McDaniels firing is the difficult calculus. And for a team getting ready for that, it is a quarterback you know comparatively less about than Jimmy Garoppolo when he was under center. You still understand the other stars on that roster, and I'm sure have a ton of respect for Josh Jacobs, especially since he came online a lot last week. Michael Mayer's got more involved in the picture for the Raiders, and obviously Davante Adams on his best day has had claimed to be one of the best receivers in the NFL. The reason I'd agree with you too, Dad, is on the other side for the Dolphins. When have we seen the Dolphins struggle? When you're able to affect Tua, like you said, and that starts up front, and the Dolphins, again, limping into this game on the offensive line. Robert Hunt and Robert Jones, their offensive guards, both week to week with injuries right now. And so if they don't go, Liam Eichenberg's going to be playing another. So he switched over. Yep. He had played left guard before. He switched over to right guard now in practice this week. He'll have played all 5 positions for the Miami Dolphins offensive line, which is great for Liam and career longevity. Yeah. We love that for the former Notre Dame guy, and I believe their former 3rd-round pick out of South Bend. He's done a great job in finding ways to affect the game on the field. But, Dad, for the Dolphins, yet another potential offensive line combination. Not what you're looking for, because that foundation for this team, while you got Teron Armstead back, has been the place against upper-level competition like the Bills, like the Eagles, where you've been able to affect them. Max Crosby's sort of been a one-man wrecking crew in that regard. So while the rest of the Raiders' D-line doesn't really match that energy, you do worry about what Max Crosby alone can do in this, considering he's 4th in the NFL in sacks and 2nd in tackles for loss. He does the game wrecker stuff.
Yeah, he does. I mean, so Miami has to, if you're going to block them one-on-one occasionally, then the other side is, if you block them with somebody else, do you leave them into double team? Is that person then the outlet, whether it's a tight end or a running back, chip it on them, then they're the outlet, the last person that Tua is going to look at. So that's what Max Crosby does. Again, I don't see it happening, but of the 3 presented to us, they're the ones that I think could pull it off.
Yep, yeah, they're the only ones that really have a shot, I believe, there as well. Devon Achane, by the way, could be back this week for Miami, which would be a huge boost and maybe help offset that. They're a great rookie running back. The rest of these teams, the Panthers, I just hope Bryce Young gets out of there alive against that Cowboys defense. That has been one of the worst pass-protecting offensive lines in the NFL. And we saw how it went for Tommy DeVito last week, and I just want them to protect Bryce Young at all costs. He's already had enough hell this year. Speaking of short quarterbacks, and a quarterback from the same draft class as Bryce Young, Jesse, did we hear we've got a matchup of, I won't say short king, CJ Stroud's of normal height, but Kyler Murray announced his presence with authority returning back to the NFL last week and had some nice things to say about his counterpart.
Yeah, they're going to be facing off for the first time here in Week 11. And let me tell you, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are not treating CJ Stroud like he's a rookie.
I love it. To see what he's doing, man, it's like I said, I love it. It's for a fellow African-American quarterback to be doing what he's doing at this level, especially in his rookie year. It's impressive. But it's just, you love the game, if you really love the art and, the detail of the position, he's playing it the right way. He's obviously leading those guys. They believe in him. They trust in him. So I'm proud of him. I'm excited to see his career.
Gonna be interesting.
That's
Yeah, that was
most
so
I've
nice.
ever heard Kyler Murray talk.
He really went off.
I was like, oh my God, I didn't know you could say those kind of things. And Dad, you know what? Kyler Murray feels like a guy who's all of a sudden got some confidence back. It had to be incredible for him last week in that game. 249 yards and 33 rushing yards in their win over the Falcons. But Dad, just the way it looked for Kyler in that game last week, saw some of the high-level scramble stuff. He still looked as twitchy and athletic as ever coming off that ACL. And you know this, the mental hurdle for a player to clear at the end can so many times be the hardest part. And it looked like he strided over that thing with ease.
Yeah, I mean, because at practice, you're rarely going 100%. And as Mike said, the mental side of an injury, you can be told by a doctor that you're ready to go and your injury is healed 100%. But then to get out there and test it at full speed, and there is no full speed like game day full speed when you're running for your life when somebody's after you. And he did look like the Kyler Murray of old, moving around and running, which is part of his game. Now, whether he's going to be there or not next year, we'll wait and see. But as far as this game, I guess I would ask this too, Mike. I don't think Arizona will beat Houston. But, I mean, let's be honest. Houston is surprising us all. If they were to lose this game, would we come in here Monday in the show and say, wow, that's one of the biggest shockers of all time? I mean, they're still a rookie head coach, a rookie quarterback. They are, what are they sitting at 500 now, or one better than 500, right in that area there? So, I mean, would it shock us if they get, when they get knocked off more this year? We're not putting them up in the top, the top part of the AFC where you trust them with consistency at this point. They've been an incredible surprise, but to me, now I think they win this game. I think they're better than Arizona, but I'm not going to be overly amazed if they lose this game.
I would be somewhat amazed at this point. They're 5-4 right now, so they're one game over 500. And with the injury to Joe Burrow now, we talk about the AFC playoff picture. This is a team that still has a chance to walk down the Jags in their division in the AFC South, and if they play their cards right, could be a wild card team. So I would be a little bit stunned in this game, Dad. I think that it's a great opportunity in this game for the Texans, whose running offense had been nowhere for the majority of the season, came alive last week in a big way against the Bengals, and the only team who gives up more rushing first downs in the NFL than the Cincinnati Bengals, the Arizona Cardinals. So it's a great chance for them to keep that rolling with a quarterback and a team that have been one of the best stories in football.
And also on the other side, though, the Texans are one of the worst against the pass. So is this a game where Kyler Murray, gets going throwing the ball? For Arizona to have a chance. We'll have to wait and see. I'm with you. I think Houston's a better team and will win this game, but I'm not going to be like, oh, my God, I can't believe that happened if they don't.
I'm more interested to see this continued revitalization of Kyler Murray and if he can play his way back into that job. But let's get to the L, Jesse, as the Browns have a daunting task ahead of them.
Yeah, they're headed into that Week 11 matchup with the Steelers without Deshaun Watson, obviously, after that season-ending injury. And so Kevin Stefanski talked about kind of like how the team is feeling as they head into the rest of their season without their franchise QB.
We're excited about our opportunity this week. Got the 6-3 Steelers coming to town, 6-3 Browns down there on the lake. So we're very excited about that, and that's where our focus is. We're focusing on going 1-0 this week, any which way we can, and that's the exciting part about life in the NFL. I just know. We've talked about as a team, again, with the NFL season, there are ups and downs, there are wins and losses. You lose guys due to injury, people step up, but we as a team don't ride an emotional roller coaster. It does us no good. We focus on the task at hand.
I mean, obviously, coach speak, like you got to do what you got to do. Also, guys, I did see on Twitter that somebody spotted Joe Flacco on a plane headed to Cleveland. So he's reportedly one of the names that they're working out.
Wow.
Hey, man, you got to find a way because the rest of this team is ready for it there. And while Joe Flacco is a statue at this point, behind an offensive line that's down both its starting tackles, I guess at this point, Dad, depending on how the rookie DTR looks tonight, and I think this weekend, very interesting opportunity to use him as a rusher against a defense that gave up 198 yards to the Browns the last time they played. I know Nick Chubb doesn't live here anymore. Jerome Ford's taken over. But I think the middle of this Steelers defense has been so decimated by injury at linebacker the last couple weeks. The Browns absolutely have a shot at still winning this game and taking out the Steelers. The only thing I'd bet on this one is the under, because Kenny Pickett and this Steelers offense, again, accomplished this Herculean feat of not getting outgained in every game so far and having a winning record. I can't trust them to score points, and this Browns offense is led by a rookie that's still going against a Mike Tomlin coach team that can always muster magic.
Listen, they beat the Browns the first time they played this year, but they gave up, I think, 198 yards on the ground. They've lost a couple of linebackers in consecutive weeks in Holcomb and Alexander. And their offense stinks. Let's be honest. The Pittsburgh offense is not a good offense, and the Browns defense is a great defense. So that automatically has them in the game. So how can they make the game plan for DTR, the young quarterback, which they'll live on running with Ford and with Hunt, and they'll try and work around that. But they absolutely can win. I would pick them to win this game.
Kenny Pickett, by the way, 0 touchdown passes in 3 of his last 4 games. Starting to get awkward for him in addition to their offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. Dad, let's head to the eye here for the interstate battle. Is the loser of the Jets-Bills matchup out in the AFC playoff picture? I would say this: I do not take the Jets seriously as an AFC playoff team at all now. I can't do it. I won't do it. I have a ton of respect for that defense, but that offense is just not up to the task. We've seen it over a long sample size outside of really 1/2 against the Kansas City Chiefs for Zach Wilson.
I completely agree. And don't we expect, now that the Bills made that change, to all of a sudden have some kind of offensive surge? Isn't that what we normally see?
Yep.
Josh Allen reportedly is going to be more involved in the game plan. Joe Brady, the new O coordinator, who was the quarterback coach, says he believes he's the best quarterback in the league. The only problem is, if you have the best quarterback in the league, your offensive coordinator isn't getting fired. So I believe in building up your quarterback, but let's pull the reins a little bit. I do believe they're out, and more. I'm with you. I don't look at the Jets as a serious contender. So this to me is more on the Bills trying to stay in the hunt for the playoffs, because they're I think the better team and would be the more consistent team. To be able to make a move, I don't know, with the way they're playing right now, wouldn't be very much in the playoffs, but still, I think compared to the Jets, it would be.
I think, to your point about the response from the Bills inside this building, you know this, you can correct a lot of mistakes even after a loss, but when people start getting fired, everybody's ears go up because you understand, all right, it's real now. Josh Allen said he took this personally. Ken Dorsey's a guy that he really loved and respected, and he said if I had played better, if this offense had played better, he'd still be here right now. So I do expect good Josh Allen here. And again, when you're going up against this team on the other side, the Jets have gone 36 straight possessions without an offensive touchdown. That drought spans 11 quarters and an overtime period. You're going to have opportunities to affect the outcome of this game. I think this is a big bounce back for the Bills when we get good Josh Allen. And Dad, speaking of redemption, let's get to the C. Is there anything Justin Fields can do in his return? We expect Justin Fields to be back for the Chicago Bears this weekend. Is there anything he can do to cement his role as the starter going forward for a team that right now holds the number 1 overall pick by way of Carolina?
I don't think so, Mike. I mean, I don't expect some miraculous numbers and this team to go on an incredible run, not only because of Justin Fields, but because what's around him as well. This team is not a playoff caliber team all the way around, but we know where the focus goes, and the focus goes on the quarterback. He just turns the ball over too much, 35 touchdowns, 27 interceptions. You try and build around him a little more, which they did in the trade. You get DJ Moore, and that certainly helped. Cole Kmet is having himself a decent year as well. But I think we know how this works, right? You see how somebody's panned out for a couple of years, and you see potential. The word potential just gets eyes lit up. So you see the potential of a Caleb Williams, a Drake May, and you're saying we can't pass up what we think they're going to be because we've seen a couple of years of what we have right now, and we don't know how much better it's going to get. So we're going to go with the P word and draft a quarterback.
Yeah, it's a tough situation here, man. My advice to Justin Fields, start rooting for the Carolina Panthers to be a lot better than they've been and drive down the value of that pick. And then got to go out there and at least eye test-wise, Dad, make it look better than Tyson Bagent. Because right, wrong, or indifferent now, that's what everyone's going to be looking at. You've got comparison there, and that is always the thief of joy. Great revenge game for David Montgomery, by the way, coming back into this one, tied for the NFL lead with 3 100-yard rushing performances. So I unfortunately think the Lions are going to make that very unfun for Chicago. But coming up next, speaking of redemption stories, how did the Denver Broncos defense turn this around? We talked to Patrick Surtain II next.
Patrick Surtain II and the Broncos are coming off a huge win over the Bills on Monday Night Football. The fellas caught up with Patrick earlier this week about how to keep that momentum rolling into Week 11 against the Vikings.
All right, Patrick, appreciate you giving us some time today, man. Know it's a busy week in the midst of this season, and a season that's turned around very quickly for you guys in Denver here over the last month or so. Walk me through this. How have you guys, especially on defense, on your side of the ball, been able to get things back on track after a tough start to the season?
Yeah, I feel like the main thing was with us was understanding that first things first, that wasn't our standard the first couple of weeks, and sort of locking in, honing in on the little things that we could correct. And eventually, as a defense and as a unit, we just gained so much confidence through these past couple of weeks, which allowed us to force 8 turnovers. You know what I mean? That's a huge confidence booster for us because at first we wasn't, creating the plays, creating the turnovers like how we should have. But now you can sort of see us really like flying around to the ball and making plays, which is a testament to how we prepare each and every week. So,
talk about from your standpoint, a few years in the league now with, unfortunately, a few different head coaches and the transition each year to new coaches, new assistant coaches, and new systems.
I think the biggest thing is understanding the game plan they're trying to bring in, the scheme they're trying to bring in. It's like a copycat league. Some coaches run the same thing. Some coaches got their own philosophy. But the main thing is understanding the defense and how it could work and using it towards your advantage.
Over either this year or even before that, we see it now more teams are having it. Have you had any players-only meetings to kind of air anything out? And if so, do those feel like they do anything if you've gone through them?
Yeah, we have. I think it means more when you have the players come together, rally together, and have those private and separate meetings because obviously a great team is led by players. When you got a team that really cares about it and it matters to them, that's when you see the players chiming in making sure everybody's on task, understanding the goals that we have for ourselves, because we know what type of team we have. And, the first couple of weeks was really a lighting point for us to really, get our mindset together and really change things and fix things around here.
You talk about a player-led team. One of the players most people think of when they talk about your guy team is your quarterback, Russell Wilson. And I'm sure for you, growing up and coming up as a young player, seeing Russell Wilson, this guy who's on a Hall of Fame trajectory, and what he did during his time in Seattle, there's probably a lot of things you think you know about Russell Wilson from the outside looking in. From your experience so far with him as your teammate, what is Russell Wilson, the teammate and the leader, like for you guys in the locker room?
Yeah, he's always positive. He always brings great affirmations throughout the locker room. I mean, he's just one of those guys that once you talk to him, you can feel that veteran presence. You can feel that leadership because, having him around the locker room is a huge confidence booster for us as a team. When you got a guy like that, understandable also around the team, because it doesn't only make him better, it makes us better. And the team feeds off it. So, it's great having him around the locker room for sure.
And also guys around that have gotten what you want, and that's hardware. I mean, the whole idea is to win the Super Bowl here, and you have one in Russell Wilson. You have a coach in Sean Payton who has done the same thing. They've hit the highest point of the mountain. So when Sean first came in, I'm sure everybody was very attentive, A, because it's a new coach and you're going to be, but B, he's got a pretty damn good resume. What was his initial message to you guys?
Yeah, I think he was pretty intentional on having that winning attitude as soon as he stepped in. You can just tell by the type of guy he is. Everything is about winning. Everything is about structured, and that's what he brings to the table. And obviously, I know what to expect. Obviously, I've seen what he's done in his past years. His resume speaks for itself, but watching it firsthand, watching it eye to eye is pretty, spectacular to see what he's done and the credibility he, deserves in this league. And when you see it firsthand, you can see what's really going on and how he excels well. So, everybody riding behind him and trusting the process, which is a great thing.
You're no stranger to championship pedigree. You won a championship while you were at Alabama. You played for one of the greatest coaches of all time in Nick Saban. And we talked to Will Anderson the other day and asked him about Saban, who's pretty well known for being able to administer a good ass chew in there from time to time when he gets on guys. And he said to us, we asked him, did he have one moment he remembered getting cussed out by Saban? He said he never got it bad, but he always felt bad for you guys in the DB room because Nick was always riding you guys. So do you remember like a welcome to Nick Saban moment when you got to Alabama in that defensive back room that he's all over?
Yeah, I have plenty, but first, the list just goes on and on. With Saban, man, it was like I had like one bad practice, and just like I had a lot of mental errors, was making a lot of mistakes, and then I already knew what was coming, so I just prepared myself. But we walk in the film room, then I just see play after play. Then I just get an ass chewing, you know what I mean? And it was just to a point where you just sit there and you just got to understand, man, like his coaching method is not a bad thing because he want to see the best in his players. And, once you realize that, you understand his message, not as a bad thing, but as a good thing moving forward. So
let's look ahead at something that's going to be there is your game. You guys are on a 3-game winning streak. Minnesota's on a 5-game winning streak. With Josh Dobbs has become this feel-good story in the NFL of his 4th team now and bopping around and learning the system quick. And what have you seen not only from this Minnesota offense, but from Josh as he's taken the reins of this team?
Obviously when Kirk went down, there was a lot of talk about who was going to be the next man up, who was going to step in and replace him. And, obviously Josh, he's done a great job so far. Just him coming in, him getting traded, and stepping in right away and stepping in and making plays and, getting the offense right back on track. So, what I see in him, he's very smart. He's very composed, I could say, and he makes plays for the team. He makes the right plays, which is something you want a quarterback to do. And for us, we really got to hone in on the little details and understanding the scheme and the concepts they like to do with them, since it's a different quarterback running the operation. So
yeah, it's a matchup that I think a lot of people are really intrigued with now because of your guys' turnaround, because of him being under center. So I know we're all very excited for that one. I mentioned your 2 coaches at college and now in the NFL who are your current coaches. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, was that light work after playing for your dad in high school? Because I didn't play for my dad in high school, but as someone who was playing high school ball, getting ready to go to college, and having a dad who played in the NFL, my dad was always watching film with me on Sundays, and it was great to have the help and the resource. But every once in a while, I was like, all right, I really don't need this today. You kind of get, what was it like actually having your dad be your coach all through high school like that?
It was great. Because on the field, he's your coach. Off the field, he's your dad. But I could say it was one of those surreal moments. It was one of my fondest memories throughout my career, just spending time with him and understanding, because he ain't giving me the easy route, I could say, for sure. He was very hard on me, just how he was with everyone else, and that's something that I needed. And just seeing him coach, seeing him lead us to state championships after state championships was pretty exceptional. Just building that father-son relationship, on the field and off the field was pretty spectacular.
Mike, it'd be nice if you talked about me like that.
I was going to say, he really made me look bad in front of you right
Seriously.
here. He gives this really heartwarming answer. They had this great experience, and clearly it worked out in the back end now as you're one of the best players in the NFL at your position or at any position right now. So he's got a lot to be proud of. That also extends to off the field. You've been doing some great things in the community, including the Inspire the Dream Gala that you've got coming up. What can you tell us about this event and the Pat Surtain II Foundation?
Yeah, so the gala is just shining a light on my mission, which is, giving back to those who are at a financial disadvantage, in the inner city, in their school systems, just having students that doesn't have the resources or the funds they needed, and for me helping out and giving them the necessary resources so they could exceed in their respective, fields, so they could, build a career in the future, so they could, have something going for them rather than, them just not having enough resources, you know what I mean? Because my main thing is seeing kids succeed and reach that next level, which is a huge part of my vision. So it's going to be a night to shine a light on that. And, it's going to be a live auction, giveaways. And I'm just very excited for the night. It's going to be a special night for sure.
That's very cool. I mean, listen, you'll have a great football career, but as you know, helping others is gonna have a longer reach than that. So it's very impressive.
No, it's incredible stuff. It's incredible work on and off the field by you, Patrick. We appreciate the time today. Best of luck this weekend. Best of luck with the gala, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
back to GoJo and Golic. It is time to turn our attention to the college game with our Modelo College Football Weekend Preview, brought to you by Modelo. So, the mark of a fighter. Guys, couple big names to get to. Big games, big names too in them as well. Let's start with number 1 Georgia and number 18 Tennessee. Any storylines that you guys have your eyes on for this one?
Yeah, Dad, I think as we get close to the home stretch here now, I'm proud of us as a collective college football community for the fact that we don't make everything about the playoff for the entire season, but now we're in late November, and so it's impossible to not look at these games, especially in a year where we've got more 10-0 teams that have made it to this point in the season than any time since the BCS era began. And for Georgia, you've ascended back to your perch as the number 1 team in the country this last week in the college football playoff polls. You're going on the road to a Tennessee team that, Dad, just got boat raced pretty solidly by the Missouri team that Georgia just beat. But I think, Dad, Georgia wins this game decidedly. They're a 10.5-point favorite in this game. I'd be in favor of them covering that line. But what I will say in defense of Tennessee is some untimely turnovers in that game against Missouri kind of sent that one on tilt. It was a 1-score game at halftime that got away from them late. And this is still everything that could give Georgia problems in a team that's a pretty strong SEC rushing attack, because the last time we did see Georgia, they got run on a little bit by that Missouri team.
Yeah, they did, and you're right about Tennessee. Turnovers, they had 9 penalties, 95 yards, so you can't make those mistakes against Georgia. That's the one thing. You could sit there and have the best game plan in the world, but if you hand a better team opportunities, you're going to lose, and you're probably going to lose big. So I agree on the rushing. We'll see if they can get some rushing. Now, listen, Georgia put up, 300 yards rushing on Ole Miss? I mean, they ran the ball incredibly well. The best thing that happened, in my opinion, though, in last week's Georgia game was Brock Bowers coming back. Now, he had just 3 catches for 34 yards, but to have him back, to have him get going again, to have him get back in game shape and be there for this run. As we talk about with injuries, every team goes through them, but where are you coming to the end of the season? Do you get through the injuries, and are you hitting on as many cylinders as you can by the end of the year? And having who was arguably the best player, non-quarterback in the country, between him and Marvin Harrison Jr. back in the fold, I think is monstrous. So that was kind of the biggest thing for me. I think they win this. I think they cover. I think they're rolling right now. Listen, Tennessee, we know last year was the passing team with Hendon Hooker. This year, it's just not really happened with Milton. We thought there would be more in the passing attack with Joe Milton, but they've been running the ball well. So that's where this game could actually be a pretty quick game if both teams sit there and try and hammer the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're totally right on Brock Bowers. That is Lombardi Trophy finalist Brock Bowers, by the way, back in the lineup for the Georgia Bulldogs. I think, Dad, him coming back at the same time where you've had Ladd McConkey reemerge as your premier wide receiver in a group that's got plenty of great athletes in that room. Ladd has been the consistent force through the last few years of this Georgia now dynasty, and he started this season banged up. He's gotten healthy. This whole team really started the season pretty banged up and got healthy at the right times to end the year. So I agree with you. I think Georgia defensively, interesting challenge for them, since we know it's not quite the Death Star in recent years, but I think the offense is now built to carry more of the load. They're trying to become the first team to go 8-0 in conference in the SEC 3 straight years in SEC history. So not even Nick Saban's Alabama dynasty has been able to pull off what the Bulldogs have a chance to do in conference this weekend. We both think that Georgia wins, and wins pretty decisively in this one. Then we get out to the Pac-12, Dad. This might be the most interesting 2-week stretch for any college football team in the country, because Oregon State, one of the last remaining teams in the Pac-2, has a chance to absolutely throw a missile into the side of the Pac-12's playoff hopes. They are hosting Washington, number 5 ranked Washington this week, and then they get to play Oregon next week. 2 of the top teams in college football, both 2 teams we imagine to be premier playoff contenders. And now, Dad, Washington going on the road to Corvallis, where some weird stuff happens. Washington was one of the teams you picked to be in the college football playoff at the beginning of the year. You a little nervous at all about the Beavs?
Yes, I definitely am. 2 high-flying offenses, we know that, right? Both yardage and scoring. But also Oregon State runs the ball well, and Washington State defensively has not been playing great. So, and they've given up yards on the ground as well, obviously, as through the air. And also, 28 points to Utah, 42 to USC, 33 to Stanford. So they give up points, and Oregon State can score points. So the defensive side of the ball for Washington worries me. And if you're in a game where you are in a shootout and needing those drives at the end, at some point does your luck run out, right? If you're living by the wing and the prayer, it's not always going to work out. And it only takes one time in this situation for you to get, this isn't the NFL, for you to get knocked off that perch and possibly have your playoff hopes dashed. So I'm still going with Washington. I made him my playoff pick. I don't think their defense has been playing well as of late, but I'm going to go with them. But how about that? A number 5 team, and they're underdogs on the road to Oregon State, but I see it the way Washington's defense has been playing. Not good, but this is one I'm kind of crossing my fingers on, and I think Washington fans will as well, as how many times do we have to kind of pull it out of the fire and does our luck run out? But I'll stick with the Huskies, but there's a lot of nerves in this one.
I think I'm picking Oregon State this week.
Yeah, I can't blame you.
I think Washington, like you said, has been living close to the edge for a while, and this Oregon State team, in addition to being able to ground and pound this thing, they've got great bodies up front, an NFL guy playing right tackle for them, and now with the added element of DJU being able to make some throws that previously weren't as accessible in this offense, I just think that especially because this game is in Corvallis, becomes a really dicey proposition. I'll take Oregon State, and I'll say we'll get the first domino to fall in some of the weirdness that we look for at the end of college football season and the ripple effects that this could have. Dad, let's finish up with this one. Texas on the road at Iowa State. 7th-ranked Texas in that conversation around the best one-loss team in college football staked their claim early in the year with the win on the road at Alabama, one of the best out-of-conference wins in college football. Going on the road to Ames. Dad, this Iowa State game, this is the game I'm calling this weekend now for Learfield College football Saturday nights, so I can't pick this game. Texas is favored by 7.5 on the road heading to Ames, but Dad, you look at what this Iowa State team has done from the start of the season, where them and Iowa are clouded in all these gambling headlines with player suspensions and everything that's gone on, to where they are now. Bowl eligible for the 6th time in 7th years, and have a young quarterback in Rocco Becht who has come on and done some impressive things. He is 1 touchdown shy, Dad. He's got 15 passing touchdowns going into this game. He is 1 touchdown shy of breaking Brock Purdy's freshman record for passing touchdowns at Iowa State. So it's been an impressive performance by the young player who's got a tall order going against this uber-talented Texas front.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Quinn Ewers came back last week and this would not be his first game back, I think helped. Missed a couple of games with the AC joint and came back through for 317 against TCU. I think that was important, much like I talked about Brock Bowers coming back, building forward. I think that was big for Texas, getting Quinn Ewers back last week. So I think they get back into their form. Iowa State's defense has been playing well. This should be a fun game for you to call. I think a lot of people are just going to naturally lean toward Texas. I am. I know they're 7.5 point, I believe. I would lean toward Texas in this. I like looking at, I remember calling Brock Purdy's games when I was calling college games when he was at Iowa State and how he was finishing up. But I do think with Quinn Ewers being back last week, getting that game under his belt, I think helps Texas get back to what we've seen out of them as they make their run, not only for the Big 12 title, but for the playoffs.
Quinn Ewers coming back is no doubt huge for them right now. Another 300-yard passing performance for him last week. And that, to me, is the matchup I'm most excited to watch in this game, is the deep passing offense with Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy on Texas's sideline, what Quinn Ewers has done in the deep passing game against this passing defense for Iowa State. Number 1 in the Big 12 in pass efficiency on defense with 15 interceptions on the year. They lead, they're 10th in the country and lead the Big 12, +9 in the turnover margin there. So they've been sensational on not giving the ball away. Only 1 fumble lost the entire season on offense, and all those takeaways on defense. They've got a chance to make this very hairy, because that's a formula for success at home against a big-time team where you're trying to pull the upset. So very excited to check out that one. Heading to Ames, me, Chris Hassel, college football Saturday night. Should be an incredible weekend of college football coming up. But coming up next, we're going to finish off the show the way we always do, with a shocking admission by a rap star next. All right, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you off into your weekend. As always, download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us that 5-star rating. And make sure you check us out here live Monday through Friday if you can, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKingsNetwork.com, DraftKings YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, and more. But if you have to miss any of it, and our great guests like Patrick Surtain II, who joined us today, Broncos All-Pro defensive back. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts or right here on YouTube immediately after we're done with the show. Guys, let's get to this, that, and the third. Shocking admission yesterday coming on the internet that should have all of our antennas up. Snoop Dogg, famed recording artist and rapper, posted a visual yesterday on his Twitter with the caption that simply said, "I'm giving up smoke. After much consideration and conversation with my family, I've decided to give up smoke. Please respect my privacy at this time." I appreciate him formatting this like a player decommitment from a college football team. But Jesse, Dad, we all know what's about to happen here, right?
Obviously,
we're about to get sold something.
Yeah, this is marketing. He's going to release a line of edibles or something or other. The way he also said he's giving up smoke, he didn't say he's giving up weed. He just said smoke.
Same.
So you don't have to smoke it, but it's going to be like, you don't have to smoke it, you can eat it. Like something like that.
Listen, there is no shot he's given up even smoking. I agree with you guys. It's a new product coming out, whatever it's going to be. But I guarantee you he ain't done smoking. Here's a guy, though, that we've talked about. His debut album was in 1993, produced by Dr. Dre, Doggy Style. This guy has been relevant for 30 years. 3 decades we're talking about, right? And just the cool factor that he is, that he just finds a way to stay relevant. You see him in all the different commercials out there as well, and then he and Martha Stewart doing their stuff together. It's been absolutely amazing. But yeah, there is no shot that he is giving up smoke, and he's got another product coming out that he'll make more money on.
Yeah.
Are you saying there's no way on God's green earth that he's
no way on God's
smoking?
green earth? There will be pictures again posted somewhere, somehow, of him smoking. Something that I know, Mike, one of your biggest regrets that you didn't smoke with Snoop.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, I had a chance to smoke weed with Snoop Dogg when I was in college at a concert in South Bend. Had a friend who knew him. We got to go down there and meet him after. Was an awesome guy. The guy with the green hat was there too, and there was a lot of pre-rolled marijuana cigarettes in there, and because I was afraid of random drug testing in college, passed down that opportunity because I was a scared little junior who wanted to make sure he still got on the field. And I didn't actually get drug tested that year. So I could have done it, could have gotten away with it, could have had the all-time story of smoking weed with Snoop. And now
no,
I like
if
the fact
you had smoked with Snoop, you would have gotten drug tested. That's just the way the universe works.
100%.
Yeah.
I like the fact you said something I would have said, a bunch of pre-rolled marijuana cigarettes. That sounds
I
like
wasn't
something
sure if I
would
could say
say.
pre-rolled blunts on air, but I guess this isn't the FCC, so we could say blunts.
Seriously?
Say it.
Blunts?
He
Yeah.
pulled, it was the fattest rack of pre-rolls I have ever seen in my life. I looked up and said, I was like, dear God. That also probably would have knocked me on my ass something serious. I'm not great at being high, and so that would not have been the place that I probably wanted to learn that lesson. But
I love the
congratulations.
fact you just said ass, but didn't think you could say blunt. Well done.
We're
It's
hitting all
going
the
really
high
well for me.
points.
Jesse, save me from myself with the beautiful sounds of Andre 3000 playing the flute.
Yeah, Andre 3000's flute album that apparently you think goes really hard, and I've heard some of it, and we don't agree on that. People have been sort of questioning if like Andre 3000's holding back on some like sick rap songs he's not releasing or whatever, and he had something to say about this whole narrative.
People think, oh man, he's just sitting on raps, or like he's just holding these raps hostage. Like I ain't got no raps like that. Like it actually feels, sometimes it feels inauthentic for me to rap because I don't have anything to talk about in that way. Like I'm 48 years old, and not to say that age is a thing that dictates what you rap about, but in a way it does. And like things that happen in my life, like what do you talk, like I gotta go get a colonoscopy, like what do you what do you rap about? You know what I mean? Like my eyesight is going bad. Like
Objectively hilarious because it's so true. And you love a guy who's just going to be honest about this. He's like, I'm out of the game. I don't have anything to rap about, but these flutes, they go hard.
How great would it be if we got a rap song about colonoscopies? That would be awesome.
Why don't
a rap song about all the things that happen to you as you start to get older. rap about him. I know I would appreciate all that.
Maybe you guys could collab on that one. We should get that.
I do feel like that has big PSA potential of, hey, you want to encourage people to go out there and get colonoscopies. Here's Mike Golic Sr. with a message and Andre 3000 with a musical ditty that's going to take you into the doctor's office.
Yeah, maybe we can really get people to, get out there and get their colonoscopies. Is it 50? Is that the age you're supposed to get a colonoscopy?
It depends on the history of the family, 45 years old, or the history of your family. Like my father had dealt with that, so I had to start earlier. But, yeah, it's what you deal with. But I would love to see that as we see the aging rock bands that are out touring again. I would love to see the aging rappers start to rap again about things going on in their life now, kind of Golden Bachelor-like, right? We see a whole different view of the Golden Bachelor. Now you see rappers in their 40s and 50s rapping about things that they're involved in today.
Is the Golden Bachelor going to just usher in an era where we take every reality show format and put it with old people?
Yes. I mean, Love Island.
Chopped.
Love Island with old people. Let's do that.
God.
Please.
Yeah, all aboard the train on that one. All aboard the flute train, by the way, for Andre 3000. I have got New Blue Sun queued up for the flight. I am going to be vibing out to flute tunes, so if you see me in the airport wandering around that day, just know I am going to be in a zen-like stage because Andre 3000 has been fluting me into the next level of higher intelligence. Pump for that one. Pump for, good for him for just doing what feels fun for him. I understand, you don't have to age out of any musical genre, Dad. You mentioned we got plenty of old rock stars and people that still write well into that, but he is not feeling it anymore. He doesn't feel like he personally has anything to say with that, so we'll all take our little helpings of Andre 3000 features whenever an artist can drag him into the studio and get him to say something on air, and then the rest of the time, we'll listen to him play the flute because that's what we get at this point, because that's what he wants to do, and that's cool to me. Let's get to the third, guys, because what's not cool to me is what's coming here. Now, we'll start, Jesse, with, I think, what is objectively cool, and that's what's going on in Prague, where they're doing beer slinging the right way.
Yeah, so there's this restaurant in Prague. I'm afraid to try and pronounce it. I should have asked, my husband's family's Eastern European. I should have asked how to pronounce this.
Vitopna?
Vitopna. It's located in Prague. They bring you your food and your beer on these little trains that come to your table, which is like great. I mean, I think it's kind of like kitschy, you put it on your cute Instagram story. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Wait, Jesse, I feel like you're poo-pooing. Why?
You're poo-pooing.
Why? What is so wrong with this? Come on.
No. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like how restaurants do everything for the clickbait. Like, I'm more interested in how the food tastes. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you go to restaurants and they serve you food like in a medical beaker or like on a shovel or something weird. I feel like this is one of those vibes where they're trying to be like, yeah, put this on your Instagram story. And it's like, I just want to know how the food tastes.
The train's at least cute, though, and it has no connection with the food, whereas, like, I'm with you. There's all these places where they come over and drop, like, the cotton candy in the drink right beforehand and dissolve it in there. Jesse, would you rather have this train setup than the other video that we've got of some drone delivering beers at a restaurant? Because I can tell you what I'm all the way out on is the drone delivering beers. We got enough drone action last night in the NFL game. I don't need any more drone stuff.
No, you're absolutely right. I don't want drones delivering anything to me. So I would definitely much rather have the train. The train thing's cute. I mean, not that kids are drinking beer, but I bet it would be a fun place to bring kids.
Get your kids drunk at Vitopna.
Listen, it looks cool, the beer being delivered on a drone, but I'm out too on the drones because next thing you know, the drone's going to bring you your beer, you're going to take the beer, and the drone's going to lazy you to death. So I'm not up for that. Give me the train. I'm all cool with that. Jake, Mike, your brother Jake, he would love that. He's a train freak. I think that would be a cool thing to sit and have everything delivered by train. But yeah, I'm out on drones. Don't need that.
Big train adult?
Big train adult.
Big train adult.
Everything. Big train guy. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're also ready to war against, I would happy birthday to the ground this drone out of the sky here and make sure it felt the wrath. If you're also joining us in the fight against the robots, download, subscribe, rate, review. Have yourself a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.